Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It's another weekend, another day has passed, and we're gonna look at the markets today again. We're gonna look at another couple gold and silver mines. Let me just put online that I am streaming right now, and then we're just going to get straight into it. Hey, Simba. It was a dark day yesterday for you. Yeah, man, we crushed the Netherlands 5-1 against Sweden, man. I don't watch football. So my buddies were over yesterday and we watched it, the whole game. It was quite a blast. Unfortunately, man, when you're from Sweden, it was 2-0 in the first 5 minutes. You know, it's done afterwards. Let me just make a couple posts that I'm live, and then we're just going to talk about the markets a little bit, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, how have you been, Simba, all week? You're from Sweden, no? Yeah, I'll link. And let me create a post, and then afterwards we can just go ahead and get started. Get the shareable link. Post. All right. All right. All right. We are good to go right now. So, another week has passed, huh? It's been so warm in the Netherlands the last week that I really didn't have much time to be on the PC and really follow the markets again. Unfortunately, it's really summertime, it feels like. And so, you know, it's pretty hard to focus on the PC and all those kind of things, but, you know, things have to happen and we have to keep with it, of course. So let me see what has happened within the world of gold and silver. Have you seen First Mining Gold's latest June 16th announcement? Cat Lake and Local First Mining have authorized that Springhole project after completion. I did not see that, but I do own this company, so I should be up to date with all of this. Hey, AJ Walsh, good morning, man. Welcome back. So, First Gold Mining has released a press release. First Mining announces Spring Lake project authorization from Cat Lake First Nation and Laxal First Nation following the completion of the impact assessment. All right. So what do they say? The company has announced the following. No. They have informed First Mining that they authorized the project. All right. Environmental and water protections, enhanced management of mine and tailing, water treatment, and moving and operational. Let me see. So what does this mean? What has been stated in this press release? Because it's a lot of names, right? First Mining Gold announced the following: the completion of the Anshibai-led impact assessment, which is a process for the Spring Lake Gold project, undertaken by Cat Lake First Nation and LaSalle First Nation. First Mining has been informed by Chief and Council of Cat Lake and LaSalle that the nations authorize the Spring Pole project subject to important terms that have been captured in the agreement between First Mining and LSFN. So it seems like that they came to an agreement with a form that both of them signed. Informed by the ALIA, there are 35 negotiated items secured in the term sheet agreement, including, and then these are the items that they've negotiated: environmental and water protections, enhanced management of mine, rock and tailing, water treatment, and moving the operational treated water discharge location to protect Spring Pole, and Birch Lakes. All right, so they need to do something with their water, right? They can't be dumping it right back into the lake. They need to be treating their water before they put it back. So that is going to take probably a permit, and then as well some more money, right? Some more capex to be put into that. Culture and socio-economic safeguards, key conditions addressing impacts identified to support culture and well-being. All right, so this is talking about the negotiated items that they've had to negotiate to get the approval from them to start this mining operation. Economic participation, significant financial benefits, including revenue sharing, a guaranteed value in procurement opportunities, milestone payments, and annual capacity funding for direct participation in project activities. All right, so they are going to have to give the people that live near this mining facility some money, right? In revenue sharing, guaranteed value opportunities, payments after milestones, and some direct funding. Okay, sure. And then community healing, federal and proponent funding to support essential on-the-land healing and addiction treatments. All right. So it seems like they are going to have to spend some money, right, to get all of these things situated and done. But once they fix that, they've got the agreement from the people who live near this mining place to go ahead and start. It seems like. And the CEO says, "We are grateful to Cat Lake and LaSalle leadership and their advisors for the enormous amount of time, energy, and diligence they put into the process. We are proud to have supported this groundbreaking work and have truly valued the opportunity to collaborate and learn from the process. We look forward to continuing this journey together." All right. All right. Sounds like a very good step for the project, all things considered. Even though there is some cash involved, right, with paying the people that live there, it should be good if that means that they can continue with this process. Simba, their independent review, do you think this significantly improves the odds for a possibility for a mining decision? Yes, this improves their position, although it's going to cost them more money to get it into production now. But you need this approval. If you don't have this approval, then, you know, it can get a lot more tricky. Because if there's people who are living near these mining facilities, then they need to be okay with you mining there. And if they are going to block it in court, they can get stuck in a very long process. So them approving is pretty good. But yeah, I didn't see this coming. It's been out for a week about now. Let's see if the market really reacted to news like this. Wait, let me It's so hot here in the Netherlands these days. It's about 37 degrees Celsius right now. Which is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But we don't have ACs or those kind of things, so we are unfortunately just bearing this heat right now. So I got a little fan next to me. Let me know if you guys hear that, because I'm gonna keep it on today, because otherwise I will be melting here. But we just saw that this news, right? It came out from First Mining Gold, that they've had some authorization, and that they have had some improvements there. And you can see that on the 16th, the stock jumped about 30%. So that is quite a decent move, right? If we look at the trajectory of this stock, it's been going up, right? But recently we've seen, together with gold, we've seen this correction that has lasted since about January, right? When gold has peaked. The stock has dropped. Let's see how much it has dropped. It's dropped about 60% top to bottom. And then afterwards, right, on this good news, it jumped up. And a couple things are pretty interesting about this, because we can definitely tell that this market is moving towards some type of a bull market, right? Because good news, right, the news that they mine is a step closer to being in production, right? This doesn't mean that it's going to happen quick or soon, but this is a positive step in their mining journey, right? Getting the approval from the people who live there. That in this market gets rewarded by a share move of, oh, let's see, about 26%, right? I remember times during 2021 till 2020, about 4, where good news like this would mean that your stock would get sold. But now it actually means that it's up. So, you know, that's a good development. Good to see. Hey, Kosti, good morning, man. How late is it where you guys are at? It's 3:30 p.m. here in the Netherlands. Nice and bright day. How early is it for you guys? Good morning, Lee. Hoping the markets start going the precious metals way soon. Yeah, hopefully. Gee, it's 24 up here. I don't hear the fan. All right, thanks, Simba. Yeah, without the fan, it wouldn't be doable right here. Honestly, it's so hot. If you have time, can you look at the company Feridonia Gold? Let me just look it up real quick. Feridonia Gold. It should be the same as Feridonia Mining, I believe. Then no. Emerging. Is an emerging force in the Santa Cruz gold and silver exploration. Santa Cruz always kind of gives me a little bit of a, how do you call that? Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Because I've held this stock, Santa Cruz Mining, right, from 2021 all the way till 2025, and I sold it in this little dip that you see right there, right before the stock, like, I don't know, 20x afterwards. Unfortunately, missed that one. But this is in the same region. Let me see. Let me see if it at least has a big resource. Because if it has a big resource, it might be worth to look at. But if it doesn't, then I want to look at stuff that has resources today. You can see here some fat drill results. But they're talking about drill results, which probably means that they don't have a resource yet. They have an exploration target. 200,000 ounces of gold and 6 million ounces of silver. All right. I'm not going to look into this stock because it seems like they don't have a big resource yet. But I am going to talk a little bit about a exploration target, because I see that being thrown around quite a bit. And I always think it's funny when I see that. It's like we don't have a resource yet, but we are going to be drilling for a resource, and the resource that we are going to be aiming for is about 200,000 ounces of gold. That's a pretty, if this was a resource, it would be an extremely small resource in general, right? In the grand scheme of things. But then to have that as an exploration target, that means that, the potential price for this stock, is going to be a small resource. So if you're hunting elephants, if you're hunting for big resources at a small price, then this, then the potential to get 200,000 ounces of gold is just simply small. Especially if there's like a bunch of cheap stuff right there out there that's like 2 million ounces of gold, which is just, readily available. So I don't think I'll be looking much into Fredonia mining at the moment. You're back in the Netherlands? No, I'm pretty close to the border actually, but it's all kind of the same heat out here. But in my mind, I'm still kind of Dutch, I guess. Still thinking that I'm in the Netherlands. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe in the future, if they come up with like a big resource, then let me see, investing highlights. Maybe they talk about a resource in here because they do say that they have a 2.3 million ounces gold resource. All right, so then it becomes interesting, right? It's 9:45 a.m. Eastern Canada. Oh yeah. Simba, last live show you told us that you are only focusing on gold and silver. Do you think copper miners will be worth spending time on? Heard it will be booming in the future. Yes, I think it's worth to understand copper mining as well, because for sure the world is going to need a whole bunch more copper, right? Because all of the electrification that is happening right now and the way that the future is heading, you just need a lot more resources in general. However, right, copper is $6 an ounce right now. All right, copper is about $6.40 an ounce right now. And that is a historic high, right? But it came from about $5 and before that from $3. So let me show you that right now, right? So copper came from a whole long time where it was about $2.50 to $3 an ounce, right? In this area. I'm sorry, in this area. That's a whole lot of years, since 2006 until right now, so about 10 years, right? Copper has been 250-ish, up and above, and now it's $6. So that means that copper miners who were out there exploring for copper at $3 copper, right? They have a fat profit margin right now, about double. But the reason that I look at gold miners at the moment, right? And this can change, of course, with the years and with the times. But gold miners come from a time where gold was about 1500, right? From 2011, up until, what was it, 2024? And gold is about 4,000 right now. So there is more profit margin in the gold mining business at the moment. Plus, it's easier for smaller gold mines to come online, it seems like, because a lot of these copper projects that you look at, right, they talk about extremely big tonnage, and that requires a lot more processing to get done. And the reason that I kind of look at gold miners right now is, let's say you have a story like Newfound Gold, right? I recently got back into this stock, so I am a shareholder, consider me biased, right? But if you look at a company like Newfound Gold, right, this is a gold developer, right? That means that they have a project, they've drilled it, they found gold, and what they're doing right now is they've bought another mine that has a mining and a production plant, right there, the Hammer Down Gold project. It has a production mill, and what they are trying to do right now is to get this into production quickly, and that is the part of the market that I really like right now. It's projects with a big resource, with a big land package, with potential future exploration that are building towards a mine, right, that are building towards production. Because at the end of the day, that's when you get paid, right? You get paid when you produce something or when you sell the project to somebody else. And it's not that I don't like looking at copper projects, because there's a whole bunch of copper projects that are probably extremely profitable right now and are only going to get more profitable if copper goes to $7, $8, whatever. But I don't see that quick turnaround into production, right? If I look at copper projects, for instance, like McEwen Mining has like this huge copper project. The production timelines are always so, so long. It's like maybe in 2032 we're going to be in production. That's like in 6 years. But there's a lot of gold miners that say that they can get into production much more quickly. And in the environment that we're in right now, I really like that, because then you have the cash flow and you have the mobility to go ahead and to explore for more. But I think it will definitely be worth it to look at copper projects. I'm just focused on gold and silver right now because of the recent price moves and because there seem to be a lot more gold mines that can go into production quicker. Hey, good afternoon, Robin. Welcome. And the same is true for silver, but the story in silver is a little bit more special than the story in gold, because the story about silver is really about a commodity that might be able to shoot to the absolute moon, right? In silver, you're talking about a commodity that used to trade at 15 to 25 bucks and is now trading at 60. And in the future, if all of these ratios play out and if all these crazy people on YouTube are right, it can trade at like 300 bucks, who knows, right? So that changes the story there. So gold is really a profit story and silver is really a speculation story in general. And copper falls somewhere in between. It's a little bit more boring than gold is, right? So you kind of have that benefit that a lot of people are not going to look into copper because it is more boring and because it is more long-term than gold. Generation mining. Let me see. Generation mining, $200 million market cap, Canadian, so like 180 something US. Recently went up about 300% in price. I'll look into it real quick, see what's going on. I got nothing to do anyway at the moment, because I don't really think a lot has happened in the general equity markets. Just see. Right, so this is what I meant with the copper projects, right? So when you look at a gold project, a lot of these gold capex stories are the fact that they need about like 300 to 500 million dollar capex to start mining something that has like big potential and big ounces. But here you need almost $1 billion, and then the return is going to be 28%. But the payback is 1.9 years, so you put something into production 2 years after you're being paid back, and then everything after that is just profit, of course. Right. And if you could be able to compound your money 28% year over year, you would be extremely rich, right? At the end of this this mining cycle. Who knows? But yeah, the thing that I always see with these copper projects is that the capex is so huge. And, of course that brings problems, right? Regulatory problems, money problems. People are going to want to you know, get involved when it's about billions of bucks, right? Politicians want to get a little bit more money, a little bit more tax dollars. I don't know. First Mining has received positive news from the First Nations suggesting that a environmental permit will be granted end of the month. Yeah, who knows? If their environmental permits are going to be granted, that will be very good. I am a shareholder of First Mining, mostly because they have such a rich stockpile of projects, and I really like that. They have a lot of ounces, right, combined. But yeah, generation mining. I mean, we could look into it. We could look into it. AJ Wells, have you reviewed US gold mining? A lot of suggestions today, which is always a good thing because that means that it's, you know, the right time to start looking at these projects, which it definitely is. Right? Because a stock like generation mining, right, you can still buy it below the 2021 highs, and this is a copper story, so if we just overlay the copper price, right, you can just see the difference in what these stocks do, right, and what the copper price does. The copper price has risen almost 50%, while the stock is lower right now than it was in 2021, right? So there's a built-in, you know, a little bit of rocket fuel there, if you must call it something. Let me see. This is great news. I am going to look into this a little bit more. US gold mining. Have you heard of Borealis mining? Yeah, I actually went over that recently in this stream. And I believe, let me just check real quick. Yeah, I made a video about it too on the 15th of June. And after that, I have to tell you guys that I have bought a position in Borealis mining because I really like the project, but I much more like the fact that they are actually building towards a strategy, right? They got a small mine right now that is in production that is going to spit off the cash flow that they need to put another mine into production for a bigger mining set. And this company is being, you know, steered a little bit by the founder and CEO of Kinross Gold. You know, the same Kinross Gold that is... It's not the CEO, by the way, it's the managing director, just so that we are clear. But Kinross Gold is a $44 billion company, and the founder of this company is the managing director of Borealis. And, you know, I really like that idea. I like the idea that such a genuinely powerful guy is running a company like that. And I can buy the company at a 50% discount from the top. And they are building towards 2 mines. Well, I really like that, so I took a decent size position for myself. If you guys want to know my latest stock moves, by the way, I have decided to put my portfolio online for everybody to see. I'll update it live when I make a trade or when I sell something. Generally, I don't trade, I only invest, so I like to buy once and sell once, but, you know, sometimes small moves happen, of course. But it's online for everybody to see. It's only for paid members of my Buy Me a Coffee account. So you can go to the link buymeacoffee/silverlininganalysis. If you become a member, then my portfolio is free. You know, you have the membership and then you get the portfolio. You get it with it. So yeah, if you guys are interested in where my money is going, then you can find it there. But yeah, Borealis mining, is a new addition to my portfolio. I took a little bit of profit from what's it called? From Discovery Silver. Because this stock simply, right, I bought it very low and right now I'm up really big on it. And I thought in the idea of shuffling around with your value that you have in your portfolio, it's good to sell something that's gone up 10x and then buy something that is down 50% in the same cycle. All of the stocks in my portfolio are development stories, right? So all of them are building towards mines. And Borealis really fit that description as well. And I think at this point in the bull market, that is a good place to be. Yeah, for sure. I think that there will be a place and a time where it can be advantageous to really start and to go into exploration, right? The more risky stuff. But I think that right now it's not the time. Usually what I've heard from a lot of people is that the bull market has different stages in it, right? First, the commodity moves, which is gold in this case, and then the biggest gold mines move, right? You see that in like Discovery Silver, right? This is a big mining project now, but you'll also see that in companies like Agnico Eagle, which has really moved up as well, right? This is a huge company, gaining 400% in like a couple of years, right? And then after the biggest companies move, the smaller developers move, right? Like Santa Cruz Silver, right? These kind of stocks move. Then the developers move, and then eventually the explorers start to move. And I think at this point, we are, advancing in this bull market. We are having a big correction right now. And eventually, I think that all of these developers are going to move, and that is going to probably, be in line with when their production starts. Because that is, of course, a big catalyst for a stock like that. But yeah, in general, I like developers, and I'm a big part of it. Robin, generation mining is copper and palladium. That's good for petrol and hybrid engine cars. Limited global supply. Yeah, a lot of the palladium is coming from Russia, and that is, of course, being cut off. But this is the thing that I don't really like about getting into multi-commodity assets, because let's say I want to get into copper, because I understand the fundamentals about copper are saying that copper is going to go up eventually because we need more electricity in the world, and a way that we transfer electricity is simply by copper wire. You can build a whole case on that, on why the commodity is cheap based on the supply and demand of it, right? But then you go into a copper story that also has a component of platinum and palladium with it. And now I also have to have a opinion on palladium, right? So now I gotta also have an opinion about the state of the car market worldwide, because if car sales are going to go down, then the palladium price is going to come down because people simply need it less, right? And then you got to have an opinion of the general economy as well, right? Because people buy less cars if we go into a recession. So where are we in the economic cycle? And then eventually you got to have a whole bunch of opinions. And of course, I understand that if you're in this commodity trade, right, you have an opinion about just about everything in the world. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this market, right? But I think it's generally, for me personally, right, I like to focus and understand what I'm doing. And if I have to think about too many things, right, if I have to have too many opinions about too many things, I tend to really get shaken in my, how do you call that? In my conviction, right? Because what if you own a copper story that is also a palladium story? Then all the recession news that you get is wrong for palladium, but it might be good for copper in some way. So then you got to be playing with a lot of different opinions that you have, and that really, personally for me, it shakes my confidence in the story too much, and it's more difficult for me to hold on to it, because if it's just gold, or if it's just silver, then I only have to have two opinions, right? What is gold going to do, and is this management team taking the right actions in this market? But if I have another commodity, right, I have to factor that in as well, and that makes it a lot more complicated, right? And not only for me, right, also for the people who eventually are either going to buy this project or are going to fund it, right? They also have to have opinions about multiple different things. And it's always easier if things are just easy to understand and clean in execution, right? If you get what I mean. But we were looking at, before this whole side tangent, right? We were looking at Freudiana mining, and I just said that I thought that they didn't have a resource, but it seems like they have, right? So that might make it worth to just look into it, because it's a whole different story if you have 2.3 million ounces of gold equivalent in the ground than if you have an exploration target of 200,000 ounces, right? That fundamentally changes your story completely. And they say that they have about 50 million ounces of silver. So it's a gold-silver story. And they have 1.5 million ounces of gold equivalent at about 1.1 gram per ton gold equivalent. All right, that's a okay grade. At a pretty decent size. At a pretty decent size resource. So they've done a drilling program, and they have a PEA coming up. Let's see the board members. Ali Madavi, he's the founder and managing director of Spinmaker Capital Markets. All right. Charting long-term success for private and public companies specializing in finding growth capital, merging acquisitions. All right, so a money guy at the helm as the chairman. And he is joined by the president and CEO. He joined Grupo Minero something something in 1969. 96, sorry, to participate in several positions within the group. He has participated in the promotion of major mining projects. And he has been the president of Samco Gold and the director of Samco Gold. All right. So what has Samco Gold done? Been on the market from 2011 till 2015. Samco Gold formerly owned the title of the EDM project. In 2017, the parent gold company sold all shares of its Argentine subsidiary to certain shareholders, but remained with a 1.5% net smelting royalty. Oh, all right. So the company got sold at some point. They don't say for how much or to who, so I don't think that it's extremely big. The director is a PhD in natural science, co-founder, vice president, and director of Northern Urion Exploration, and president in Argentina from all its subsidiaries. All right, so a geologist. And Waldo Pierres, he has a PhD in geology and discovered several producing mines. All right, as well as founder of Lithium Americas, which has a $1 billion market cap, and Neo Lithium All right, and he's the president and director of Neolithium at the moment. Might not be publicly traded. All right. So a couple people with some success on their names, right? Geologist, natural resource, a money guy at the top, and somebody who has a background in the promotion of major mining companies as the CEO. Kind of tracks, right? It's a money market. Let me just zoom out a little bit. The El Dorado. Let me see. They say that they have 2.2 million ounces of gold equivalent. And that is comprised of 1.6 million ounces of gold and 49 million ounces of silver. And the gold equivalent grade, all right, that's fine. And they say that they are extremely cheap. They are located in Santa Cruz province, right, all the way in Argentina. So this is past production, I guess, right? From 2025 or from 2015 all the way to 2025 through heap leaching. All right. Open pit, underground, and then they heap leach the materials. So does that mean that they are currently in production or not? Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Are they in production right now or not? Consolidated financial statement. Right, let me see. Cash and cash equivalents. They got 4 million in cash. Current liabilities, they don't really have that many liabilities. That's fine. Administration expenses, exploration expenses, share-based compensation. Doesn't look like they are producing right now from their balance sheet, at least. So that I don't really understand what these kind of numbers are, right? Flagship project unlocking a multi-million ounce potential, right? So are these the production numbers of the guy next door? Oh, okay, I see. So these are the production numbers, right, from Cerro Vanguardia, and that is the site just next door. All right, sure. But it doesn't seem like they have a production site right now. Maybe this would be a nice play where the guy next door with a production base could buy out this company, right? Because you see that the production numbers have been dropping from the guy next door. So maybe they would think, hey, that's a new resource right there. Let's just buy it up and then we can continue our production profile. Right, so that's a potential play here. You could look into that if you're interested. Let's see. We'll just go, let me see. It didn't look like they were diluting their shareholders all that much, right? Balance March 2025, 2026. They've diluted their shareholders with about 20 million shares, which is about 50%. All right. And they've got some cash. Big insider ownership, I can see. That is true. But they do have a lot of warrants and options outstanding, damn. So let me see. Warrant reserves 5C. 5A, B, C warrants. So the company doesn't have a lot of shares outstanding right now, right? 60 million shares. And they've diluted that year over year about, 30% from last year. But they do have a whole ton of warrants outstanding. And they had about 13 million, and then they issued another 10 million warrants. Which lasts for about 2 years, right? And they have strike prices of just about 70 cents average. The stock is trading right now. Fredonia Mining. Fredonia Mining. Fredonia Mining. Right, they probably came to the market in like 2025, right? So a recent stock with a lot of outstanding warrants that are all vesting in about this area right here. Right, so at that 70 cent area is where a lot of these, the average warrant, right, gets exercised at a strike price of 70 cents. So when the stock comes above this, right, there are going to be a lot of investors who are going to have warrants that are going to be in the money, right? These are in the money, these are in the money, these are in the money at 70 cents. So that means that there is a whole bunch of shares that are suddenly back on the market ready to be sold, right? So keep that in mind when you are looking at stocks, right? Look at the warrants that are outstanding, because if there's a bunch of warrants outstanding, then that could mean that eventually, if the price goes above it, that could be some selling pressure that's coming your way. So just be ready for that, If you like the story and you see pressure like that coming, you could, of course, buy more. If you don't like it, you could sell. You could do a lot of things, but just keep that in mind. And then on node 5B, we can see share-based compensations, right? So because they have so many warrants outstanding and they have such a high insider ownership of this stock, I want to know how many of these warrants are owned by the insiders, right? Because if the insiders have a high ownership, but it's through warrants, well, the warrants are probably being granted, right? So it's always a story with the insider ownership if whether they have put in their own money, right? If they've put in their own money at risk, or they've gotten like that insider ownership through compensation, right? Those are two different ways to look at it. And those mean something completely different, right? If I if I put $1 million of my own money at risk, right, that says a whole different story than if I get compensated in stock, right? Those are two different forms. Robin, fair points about attention dilution. The world economy is as complex. Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It's good to be focused, in my opinion. I've seen you interview somebody about uranium. Do you have an investment there? I've got next gen. No, I don't have an investment in uranium. The guy that I interviewed has a Dutch channel about uranium. Personally, right, my opinions about uranium are that we are in such a different technologically advanced world than we were when we were first using uranium, that I think if we, with today's technology and knowledge, look at nuclear energy, that eventually we're going to find a different fuel source than uranium, right? I've read a lot about these thorium reactors and these molten salt reactors, and they use a different fuel source than uranium, right? So to build an entire bull case on the fact that nuclear energy is going to be the future, right? I understand that. I get that. I get the bull case. But I think there is a non-zero chance that we are not going to use uranium in the future, but we are going to use, for instance, thorium or something else, something that we don't know about yet. And for that reason, you know, if there can be a substitute, I don't think that it's really a solid story. So that's why I don't invest in uranium. But, you know, I bet there's a lot of uranium mines that are making money right now, you know, so I just don't invest in it. Also, I don't understand reactors, so, you know, I don't know how much fuel you need, and I bet there's a lot of experts that can calculate all that stuff, but, you know, that's not me. Regarding Simba, regarding first mining, do you think it could be wise taking some profits after the EA approval? The EA is the environmental assessment approval. Feels like it could be a good hike up. When could the next catalyst be after that? Um, so right when we're thinking about when we are talking about god damn it, open image in a new tab. So right, this is the Lassane curve. If we're talking about permits, right? We have an exploration phase where we're trying to find a resource, right? Then we have a discovery phase where we see, god damn, there's really something here right now. We should be mining this in the future. And then the speculation leaves, right? And then we're entering the feasibility stage of the project where all of the things get tested, right? All of the engineering is being done. And then eventually the permits are being granted so that we can go on into the construction phase, right? Where people are going to put in real money into the mine, where people are going to start investing in the future of this company, right? And then eventually you start mining, right? And that's when your mine is most valuable. So the environmental permitting stuff, you know, all the permits happen in this area here, which is a very boring area because nobody gives a shit about permits, right? Nobody's gonna read 50 pages of a permit about environmental assessments. Nobody cares. It's very boring stuff, right? But people do care when all of a sudden you're coming out to the market and you're saying, "Yo, we raised $2 billion to build this bad boy. Who's going to come and help us?" Right? That's a sexy story, you know? We just raised hella money. We're going to build this. That's fun. Nobody wants to read about water assessments. Nobody wants to read about dead dodo birds from 2,000 years ago who were coming to this land and laid one egg, and now the project is cancelled because of that. You know? Nobody cares. So that's in this area. And if you follow the Lassane curve, right, once you get out of that permitting, you start to get this ramp up. So would it be a wise decision to sell after an approval is granted? Depends, right? Everything depends. I'm not going to sell because if the approval is granted, that would tell me that there is a possibility of it actually becoming a mine at some point, right? And if I can have the um, the patience to wait for that mine to be built, as you can see here, this model would say that the price should be higher, or the value should be higher once the mine is built, right? So getting the permits is one of a crucial, you know, is one of a very hard but crucial step in this process. But you know, I think the permit itself could be a lot more valuable than the pop in the share price that happens afterwards, right? Because it signals that they could be going on to actually becoming a mine, right? And that is just extremely valuable. So if the permits are granted, you know, it depends on how you invest. If you want to take that money and use it for another good use, then sure, man, be my guest. But you know, you might be selling something cheap to buy something else, right? Because it's not like first mining, right? Let me get my spreadsheet. Let me get my spreadsheet real quick. right? This is first mining right here. And if we look at this, right, it has a market cap right now of 555 million bucks. And if you express that market cap divided by the amount of ounces of gold that they have in their reserves and resources, or well, in their mineral reserves, then it should be expressed as about 43 US dollars per ounce of gold that you're buying in the ground if you're buying first mining gold. And that is about 1% of the gold price at the moment. So I feel like right now, first mining, like a lot of the development projects, are in this part of the Lassane curve, right? Because they have an exploration in the past. They got a discovery, but now the boring part comes, right? And I feel like the environmental assessments, if they get the permits, of course, because there's a lot of risk that they're not going to get it, right? Then, you know, this part of the curve could start. And I don't want to sell in this part of the curve because it finally goes up, right? I want to have the patience to get the reward at the end of the, you know, at the end of the story. So I'm probably not going to sell if they get the permits. I might even buy a little more because the story just got better, right? Anyway. Let me just see what. Right, so in some sense you can see that same curve here, right? Where it's like you go discovery, discovery, and then now it's moving into the, you know, it's kind of, it's difficult to tell, you know, it's difficult with these kind of charts because this is about value and this is about price, and those two things are just something completely different, right? Something can go up in price but down in value, and something can go up tremendously in value but stay the same or even drop in price. You know, it's all probabilities at the end of the day, right? Because if first mining tripled from here and then the assessments came out and they got the permits, I might sell at that point, right? Because it already triples and now the value is different compared to the other cases that I own. So it's all relative. It's a difficult thing to manage, a portfolio. Who knew? You know, the money world is difficult, unfortunately. Anyway. Ferrodinia mining, it has a lot of warrants outstanding, right? And now I'm trying to see if the board of directors is granting themselves warrants to increase their insider ownership, right? Because that can happen. So the company has adopted an incentive stock option plan, which provides that the board of directors of the company may from time to time, in accordance with the exchange requirements, grant the directors non-transferable options to purchase common shares, provided that the number of common shares received for issuance will not exceed 10% of the issued and outstanding common shares. So the directors of the company can give themselves shares of the company or options to buy shares of the company if their total shares owned do not exceed 10% of all outstanding common shares. So at March 31st, 2026, a total of 4.5 million options were issued under this plan. And then you can see that there were last year, right? There were 2.5 million options options that were being granted. Now they've upped it by 2 million. But where do they talk about the warrants? Because the warrants are a lot more, you know. I want to know where the options or the warrants came from. Issue, let's see. On February 4th, 2026, the company announced closing of a non-brokered private placement, 17.5 million shares, right, for about 5 million US. The director and company acquired 1.2 million shares for $350,000. So it seems like the officers of the company are actually buying shares with their own money, right? So that's a pretty good sign. And each share consisted of 1/2 of one common warrant. So these warrants come from placements that have not been exercised. All right. So it seems like the company's directors are putting their own money to work in this stock. That's always a good thing to see. Right, so a potential outcome for this company, right, it could be that they are getting either taken over or sold by potentially the next guy over. Who knows? That would be a nice outcome for investors, because that's actual cash in hand, right, at the end of the day. Do you follow Jordan Daily Gold? No clue who that is. But you know, maybe after stream I'll go check. I'll go look. But yeah, interesting story. Interesting story. Maybe a potential takeover target, because they are next to a producing mine. But interesting to keep looking at, you know? Management seem to be involved, management seem to have skin in the game, and they are buying stock with their own money. So, you know, that's a very good sign. Let me just get up to date on a couple things. Let me see. All right. So US gold. US gold mining, sorry, the America's next gold copper mine development project. Right, these gold copper projects are probably something that we are going to see in the future. Because a lot of gold travels together with copper, right? And a lot of these major gold mines are stepping away from pure gold productions, and they are focusing more on gold copper, right? Barrick Gold has changed its name to just Barrick because they are going to focus just as much on copper as they are on gold. So this is if it has a decent size, right, there's a certain type of buyer in the market for these kind of projects. Robin, I plan on taking some profits from first mining after the environmental approval. I think it'll shoot up and then be heavily influenced by the price of gold. Yeah. Price versus value is pretty difficult, right? Because if the price of gold just crashes, then no amount of good news will help you in that. But, you know, just understand that if a mine gets an environmental approval, the value of that mine goes up, right? Because now it has a approval compared to a mine who doesn't, right? A mine that has permits and has approvals is more valuable than one that doesn't, right? Even though the price might not reflect that, right? So there's a gap between between the price and the value of something, and that is just essentially what you want to take advantage of, right? But, you know, on a pop, if you have something else to buy, of course, just get into it. US gold mining, it has the Whistler's Gold and Copper project. Let me see the resource to see if it's even worth talking about, right? Right, it looks like they have a open pit and a underground section. So that means that they are going to be drilling in an open pit, and afterwards they are going to drill downwards, right? Where this is potentially the first thing that they are going to mine, and then this is what they are going to mine afterwards. Which means that the initial capex will probably be lower, and then the sustaining capex for the project will be higher, because open pit is pretty easy to start with, and it can get you some cash to fund the rest of your process. They say that it has, 17 million ounces of gold in their indicated category, and about 1 billion pounds of copper. That's a very decent sized copper gold project. That's pretty good to see. So it's a very good sized project, right? And then we got a technical report. Let's see. Preliminary economic assessment. So let's see if I'm right. Let's see if the capex is lower and the sustaining capital is higher, because that's what you would think in a project like this. On the uranium thorium question, I get the point, but I don't think that thorium is realistically investable, right? So the problem with thorium is that it's not investable at all, and it's extremely cheap, right? So a little sidestep. So thorium is extremely cheap if you buy it in bulk, and it's very easily, it's very easily to access, right? Because thorium is largely extracted as a byproduct of rare earth mining. So the raw material itself is abundant, right? So that's the problem with thorium. You can't invest in the commodity itself because it's so incredibly cheap, right? So the interesting thing with thorium will be who is going to be making these reactors, right? And that is the investment opportunity there, not the actual commodity itself, where in the uranium story, the uranium itself is extremely valuable and hard to mine and very regulated. And, and there's a lot of oversight on it. And there's a big gap between what people need and what there is right now. So it makes a better story. You know what I mean? It makes a better, interesting story that goes on the commodity. And then the commodity, of course, can go up or down. But with thorium, it's the engineering behind it. And, the engineering can change too, right? Because if we get into a real crisis, then who knows, you might see all of these thorium reactors just come online in 2 years. It only takes long because there's a lot of regulation surrounding it, right? If that regulation falls away, there could be, reactors on every street corner in like a couple of years. But, we just don't want that. And that's the problem right now. And so uranium is like the link to like a new energy world with like old glasses on, basically, right? You're looking into the past if you're looking at uranium, I feel like. But that's just, that's my 2 cents. I think with first mining, the question, if selling, it's a good time to buy and then sell it next month. Well, if you're buying something right now in the mining industry and then you're selling it next month because you think that you're going to make a profit that way, you are almost guaranteed to eventually lose a whole bunch of money, right? Because the value of a mining project and the price that it is trading at on the open market have nothing to do with each other, or very little, right? Something can go up in value and down in price. So trading this market is extremely hard, right? And if you're trying to trade this market by buying something in 1 month and then hoping that the price of gold goes up and then you're going to sell it at the top of the gold price, that's not a reliable way to really grow your wealth in a lot of ways, right? It's really made in identifying good positions and then having the patience to to wait a long time, basically. We'll get into that another point, right? But into that another time. But I don't see this market really as tradable at all. I don't see how you are going to make money buying something in here for 1 month and then holding it, hoping that you'll get an approval of something that you have no control over. That is just, luck in some sense if you're making money trading in this market. you know, I have always been in this market for the long term, right? I bought my first stock, I think about 6 years ago, and I still own some of the companies from back then, right? And the project has only gotten better, but it's only been in the last year and a half to the last year that I've actually seen profits in my account, right? The first 5 years of this journey have just been red. And that didn't say anything about the project. That didn't say anything about permits that were being granted. That didn't do anything at all. But the sentiment was just bad. But the project's gotten better that I owned. So now the sentiment is better, the gold price is up, and now those stocks are up as well. But, you know, if I try to trade it in and out for, you know, for a couple months, then I would have lost all my money and I would have missed out on, you know, I would have missed out on like moves like this, right? Where I've held the project since like 2020, 2019, something like that. And then I've held the project all the way until 2024 before it even became, what's it called? Natural again, you know, zeroes out, no net gain. Then I had a small net gain until 2025. And now 2026, I'm in the money, right? I'm in profit. But I had to wait all that time, right? And that, you know, if you're going to buy something here and then try and sell it there and then try to buy it back in there and then try to sell it there, I think that's a money losing game that you're playing, right? While betting on good management teams and being in good companies and trying to get the long term benefit of mining, you know, the long term wealth creation. I think that that's the game you should be playing. But, you know, uh, I'm not here to tell you what you should do, but that is what I do. Anyway, back to gold mining. Sorry for the tangents. You know, I really don't want to be looking at companies all day. You know what I mean? I kind of just want to yap as well on these streams. So I hope that you guys don't mind too much. U.S. gold, right? U.S. gold mining. We saw that they had a big resource in their gold open pit and in their copper open pit, right? And after that open pit, they have a underground section as well. So I just wanted to know what the capex would be for this project to just get a general understanding of how much money we're looking at and what the returns could possibly be. And we look for those numbers in the economic assessment, which is, let me see if it actually is in here, right? I'm sorry. Right, the preliminary economic assessment. That's where we look to if we want to find those kind of numbers. Right, capital and operating costs, number 1.16. And then number 1.17, the economic analysis, right? 1.16. Capital cost estimates. So here we have a table of the costs. And they are going to say that they are going to need about, this is initial capital costs, right? And this is sustainable capital, right? So as I said, they are going to need a smaller amount of initial capex for their mining. And then eventually they are going to need more money once they start to get into the deeper parts of the open pit and into the underground mining, which is true, right? They're only going to need 40 million for the initial capex for the mining. And over the course of the rest of the mine life, they're going to need 320 million. But 40 million for the mining, 120 million for crushing and conveyance belts, 350 million for the processing plant, right? Because you are going to process gold and copper, two different types of processes. You need a plant for that, so 350 million. And then some infrastructure for in total about 250 million. So it's going to be a $1 billion capex, right? And then with some contingencies, it's going to be a $1.2 billion capex. All right, so that is quite a bit of money up front, which, you know, if you have a big project like that, it could be all right to have that much to spend. It has a 14.6 year mine life, right? So you are going to be spending about $1 billion, and then in 14.6 years, you are going to be getting rewarded for that. Let me just see if they have their analysis right here. No. And it has, here it is, economic analysis, and it has a 33% return rate at a gold price of 3,200 for gold and $4.50 for copper. All right, so prices are higher now, so the return rate is higher than this. It's higher than 33%. All right. So it's a very profitable gold mining project with a very big resource. Let me see what the permits are like. The project is located in the state of Alaska. All right. And it is not situated on federal lands, native lands, or tribal trust lands, so that is good. Right, and so they need to have all of these permits before they can start mining. So if you are really wanting to get into this, right, you can look at all of these permits that they need and then figure out whether or not they can get them. But, you know, that's a little bit above my pay grade. All right, so the project looks good. Let me see what else they got on permits, if they have. So they got some exploration permits at the moment. All right. Let me see what the management team is like. Tim Smith is the president and the CEO. And he's been that since 2022. Mr. Smith is also currently the vice president exploration of gold mining. And gold mining is another stock with $280 million market cap, which has been cut in half, so it was about 500 million bucks a little while ago. And he has 25 years of experience in the mineral industrial exploration. All right. With exploring for gold mineral systems, including large gold, porphyry, intrusion-related, and vulcanization massive sulfide systems. All right. In Australia and Canada. So I don't know what kind of system this is. Guess we'll find out soon. Mr. Smith has a track record of discoveries of major gold systems, including the Coffee Gold deposit in Yukon, Canada, right? Which is pretty close to Alaska where they are right now. So this is relevant experience right here. And that was acquired by Goldcorp in 2016 for 520 million. And probably afterwards, this guy became the CEO of Goldcorp as well. Oh, sorry, that was gold mining. All of these names, bro, they're all so similar. It's gold mining, and then you got Goldcorp, and now you got USA Gold Mining. You know, it's very confusing sometimes. But he sold the Coffee Gold deposit to Goldcorp for 500 million bucks, right? And afterwards, he became the vice president of gold mining, and then he became the CEO of US gold mining. So in general, this guy is very relevant experience, successful experience, relevant because he's had a discovery in the Yukon, and this is in Alaska, so that's pretty close by, and successful because that experience has been sold to another company for 520 million bucks, and that means that it's successful. Tyler Wong, Chief Financial Officer, 15 years of financial and accounting experience with publicly listed companies. And he has been the corporate controller for gold mining, gold royalties, uranium royalties. All right, pretty good. So he knows the CEO from gold mining, right? This guy was also on gold mining, so these two have worked together in the past. It's good to see. Emilia Guts, 30 years of experience. In both underground and open pit mining environments, including world-renowned Ontario gold mining camp of Hanlow and Timmins. That's pretty good. Also had roles at Goldcorp, Newmont, Eldorado Gold, Sandstorm Gold Royalties, Horizon Copper. Right, so also Goldcorp, right? So all of these three people have worked at Goldcorp in the past, which means that they have experiences together, which is good because that's an asset that you cannot really buy, right? That's teamwork. These people know each other, they've worked together. It's pretty good. And in a role, Mr. Guts will be responsible for leading and advancing the development of engineering, procurement, construction management, and project controls through gold mining's portfolio. So she is really the project development lady. It's pretty good to see. Seems like a pretty strong team up until now, right? In the management. People who have worked together in the past, who have created successful experiences. That's pretty good. And then the board of directors. Alistair Still. He is the co-founder of US Gold Mining, right? So he's the co-founder of the company. He's still the chairman of the board. 25 years of experience, including working for some of the world's largest gold miners. Currently serves as the chief executive officer of gold mining and the director and technical services of Gold Royalty Corp, right? So you see a lot of connections between these managers, and that is good to see. Right. Garnet Dawson served as the president of our company from 2015 to 2022. Since 2018, Dawson has served as a member of the board of directors of gold mining and publicly listed company and Free Gold Ventures Limited. This is a company that I own, Free Gold Ventures Limited. So a director from that company is also the director in this company. I really like Free Gold Ventures, so I like the decisions that they made over the past couple of years. So that makes me trust this man's judgment a little bit more than if I didn't invest in this company. And seeing him on this company as well, being connected to all of these other people through the experiences that they've had at gold mining, right? That gives me a little bit of confidence in this management team, right? Because I know somebody from there that I've invested with in the past, and that has turned out pretty well for me, I have to say. I like the company. I like Free Gold Ventures, like what they've done with their money and the raises that they've done. So that makes me trust this guy a little more. He held executive roles for several Canadian mining companies, including the CEO of Gold Mining, the Vice President of Exploration of Brazilian Gold, and the Vice President of Exploration of Eurozinc Mining. This is an extremely big company as well. All right, so it seems like it's a very experienced management team. Yeah, I knew this guy. Barry Olson. He is appointed as a special advisor, right, on September 1st, 2025. He has 30 years of experience in senior management, but since he's retired in 2013, he has continued to contribute to the industry as a member of the advisory committee of Agnico Eagle Mines, right? And as a director of Discovery Silver. So I know this guy from Discovery Silver. I really like Discovery Silver. It's one of my biggest positions. And where I liked what Free Gold Ventures has done in the past, I like what Discovery Silver has done even more, right? So seeing him in this story as well gives me a lot of confidence. Seeing him in this story gives me a lot of confidence. And the fact that all of these guys have worked together at gold mining before. All right. It's starting to look pretty good, I have to say, right? They got a big project, right, which is very profitable. It does require a lot of money to get it up and running. So let's just look what their financials look like and see if we can find some red flags in there. Because the surface looks pretty good at the moment. Right, let's look at the financials. So they have cash and cash equivalents. As of March 31st, these are in United States dollars. They had cash and cash equivalents of about 4.7 million bucks. And they have prepaid some expenses, 1.2 million. So their total current assets are 6 million, but really 4.7 million of that is in cash. All right. And then they have some liabilities of in total about 600 grand. Compared to their cash, that's not a lot, so that's pretty good, right? Then, how have they spent their money? In the 3 months ended on March 31st in 2026, they have had a $500,000 in exploration expenses, but $1.4 million in G&A. And if we look at 2025, that is the same kind of pattern where they spend a lot more on G&A than on exploration. That is that's not so good to see, because that means that if you give them money as an investor, they will pay general and administration expenses before exploration. But, there's always multiple ways on how to look at this, because we can see that the company already has a huge resource, right? Let me just show you guys again. The company already has 17 million ounces of gold and a billion ounces of a billion pounds of copper. So you can ask the question, right? How much more exploration do you need to do before you actually just focus on the development of the project? So in this case, I do kind of get why they don't spend as much on exploration as on G&A, because they've done a lot of exploration in the past and they've got a big resource right now. But I still would like to know the G&A expenses, number 6. Let me just get this. Number 6. What are they spending their money on? And then we are going to look in here. Right, they've had some stock-based compensation, about as much as exploration expenses, so they're paying themselves as well. They've prepaid some expenses, sure. All right, nothing really all that crazy. How many shares are there outstanding? So we can see that there are 13.3 million shares outstanding in 2025. Well, let's see. As of March 31st, 2025, they had 12 million shares outstanding. And as of March 31st, 2026, they had 13 million shares outstanding. So they dilute themselves extremely slowly. Hey, that's pretty good. That's a good sign to see. I just have to, I have to say it. That looks really good. Even though the G&A expenses are high, there seems to be very little dilution in the stock. Let me see how much the stock is trading for right now. What's the ticker? What's the ticker, bro? What's the ticker? Just give us USGO. US gold mining. It is 112 million right now. Gee, 112 million for a billion pounds of copper and 17 million ounces of gold is pretty cheap. With a pretty decent management team that worked together in the past. And a low dilution rate. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. But let's just roll down to number 6. G&A expenses. And they've spent 600,000 bucks on office consulting, investor relationships, insurance, and travel. All right. Office consulting, investor relations, insurance, and travel expenses include the cost for Blender Media, a company controlled by a direct family member of the co-chair and director of gold mining. All right, so how much money is going to Blender Media? Because that's a little shaky. Like, why is a company paying money to a company that is controlled by a direct family member of the co-chair and a director? But, you know, it's only a maximum of 600,000, right? So if you're getting ripped for a maximum of 600 grand. All right, sure. That is the bulk of the office expenses, right? There's some stock-based compensation in there, and then the rest is pretty decent. Right, and then the exploration expenses, they also spend about 400,000 on consulting fees. So, you know, the company doesn't dilute that much, but the money that they raise is being spent on consulting and non-mining related issues, as it seems right now. So, you know, unfortunately. Let's see, what have they been doing? They've put together a big exploration program. All right. They have filed their technical report. All right, let's see if they have some presentation for us to show us what their plans are, where they are right now and where they want to go in, like, let's say the next 5 years, right? That's kind of what I want to see. Because I like the story thus far, right? Low dilution, big resource, decent management. They do spend the money that they raise. You know, unfortunately, they spend it on consultation fees and Blender Media, which I don't know what that is, but it's associated to the board of directors. But let's see. All right. So I want to know, before I invest in a company, right? It doesn't matter how good it looks, right? I'm investing in a company for the long run, right? I want to be in a stock, preferably for life, right? The best holding period is forever. But since mining is a timely business, right? You cannot be in something your entire life because the mine just depletes. But if I want to get into a company, I want to know what they are going to do in the future, right? What are you going to do in the next 5 years? And the company needs to have a clear answer to that. I don't want to ask them. They have to give me their roadmap. But. So it is located in Alaska, in the middle of nowhere. So there might be potential, you know, problems with that. Let's see. Right, so their rate of return, right, at spot prices is 62%. And that is really good when you consider that they also have a $1.3 billion capex spend, right? So you're spending a lot in capex, but you're getting an extremely high return on that. So if you can compound 62% over 14 years, you are going to be one of the most wealthy individuals in the world. right? If you do that on a $1.3 billion initial capex, right? So this project is going to make a whole bunch of money. But, you know, the question is, at that point, is it going to get permitted? Is it even feasible to build it? And what are the conditions going to be in this area of Alaska, right? What drew me to US gold mining is the high level of insider ownership. Yeah, I guess that we are going to come onto that in this presentation. So, or in this PowerPoint presentation that they give. So they're trading at a cheap discount, sure. And it looks like I have been misleading you guys. Did I make a mistake? Yes, I did make a mistake. So this 17 million, right? 17 million is the ounces of silver that they have in here. I'm sorry, right? I should have seen that this is AG. AG is silver, AU is gold, and it looks like they have 3.8 million ounces of gold. And they have 17 million ounces of silver. That changes the story a little bit. That makes the project less big than I thought that it was. But still, 3.8 million ounces of gold is good, but it is not as jaw-dropping as 17 would be. But it seems like they have 3.8 million ounces of gold. Right. My apologies for the mispronunciation there. So they have about 4 million ounces of gold indicated and about 1 billion pounds of copper. Still a very decent size deposit. And they say that this is going to be their production, right? Where it is pretty high in the first 3 years, then it drops off, and then you can see it dropping off further. But the highest production levels are going to be in the beginning, which means that if you put the money up, you're going to get it back quickly, and that's pretty good. So, access, permitting, metallurgy. This is the important part. This is the boring part in a stock, right? If we go back to the Lassonde curve, this is where the curve flows down, right? Access, permitting, metallurgy. This is the important stuff. Let's see. So where is this? Port McKinsey. Port McKinsey. So this property is located about there, somewhere over there. And can we... Right, so the property is located somewhere over there in this mountain range. And can we drop our little guy on here? Can we do that? Can we do that? Can we do that? It's going to be near the town of Willow. Sure. All right. So it is located in the middle of nowhere, but they do say that they have a road, right? And that is road accessible. Fully permitted for exploration, year-round drilling possibilities. That is good, because in Alaska, it's always the question, right? Is there going to be a lot of ice? Is there going to be a lot of snow? And on which parts of the year are you able to work there? But they do have a road there, and they are near a port, so exporting the product will be pretty convenient then. Gold recoveries are good. Copper recoveries, I don't know too much about that, but you know. Right, so sulfide flotation produces a copper concentrate, and it recovers 62% of the gold, right? And they are going to leach it with sulfates afterwards. for another 27% recovery. All right. Right, so pretty conventional processing as it seems, right? They are talking about a open pit, truck and shovel, right? With a conventional flotation. So they're going to load all the ore into a truck, right? They are going to mine the ore, they are going to load it into a truck, then they are going to crush all of those ores into a very fine sort of a dust, right? And then it's going to go over water, and then the gold is heavier than the dirt, so it falls to the bottom, and that's how you get all of the gold out. And then the gold that is not extracted that way, they are going to put on a heap leaching pad, which all of the dirt is going to go onto a big pile. Then they are going to sprinkle cyanide over it. The gold dissolves into the cyanide, and they get it out at the end. And that is kind of how they are planning to start the production. Pretty conventional, big capex to get that going because it's such a big project, right? And they're going to be mining a lot of material, but in general, nothing groundbreaking or new, and that is pretty good. I do see a helicopter right there. That scares me. I don't like helicopter accessible projects because that means that everything is going to be flown in, and that just, costs a lot of money. Project is permitted by Alaska, faster, more predictable with mining federal environmental reviews. All right. 2022 to 2024 environmental baseline works covers the issues that typically delay Alaska permits. All right. All right. All right. Thus far, we have not identified any initial regulatory risk that we believe will prevent permitting. Sure, that's pretty good. So what is the timeline for these permits? That's the question. So what is the timeline for these permits? Well, they need all of these permits, right? And I don't really see like a timeline for the permits, so that might be a little bit more, that might be a little bit more time before we get a little news on that. District scale land package, right? That's fine. Exploration targets, sure. That's pretty good. So they do have an extremely low share structure, right? Low share count, not a lot of options outstanding either. Low market cap, cash, no debt. Connected with BMO, connected with Sprott. Gold mining owns, 74% of this stock. All right. Now I get it. Now I get why gold mining is so heavily involved in the management team of this company, right? Because gold mining owns 74% of this stock, right? So to understand this story, we really need to understand Gold Mining Inc. And gold mining is company of about $270 million market cap. So this could be kind of seen as a spin-off kind of situation from gold mining because they own 74% of the company, right? And then insiders of the company also own another 4.5%. So AJ Walsh, I think the insider ownership is not that extremely high if you just look at the insiders, but gold mining, right, owns 74% of the stock. So let me just let me just see how much of the insiders also own Gold Mining Inc. Because these are probably going to be the same kind of people, right? Let me just see, where are they? Corporate management. Right. Alistair Still. Where was he? Alistair Still. Paulo Piera. No, Tim Smith. Tim Smith. Right, this is gold mining, and this is US gold mining, right? We have Imola Guts. Right, so a whole bunch of people that work on US gold mining also work in Gold Mining Inc., right? And Gold Mining Inc. has a 74% position in US gold mining. So now I want to see how many of the insiders, right? What's the insider ownership of Gold Mining Inc.? Because then we, through a backdoor, can see how much of the insiders that own this stock also own a 74% a 74% position in this stock, right? Let me see. Mm. Let's just load for a second. Corporate presentation takes a little bit to load, but you know, there we go. Let me see. Presentation style is also kind of the same, right? So we can really see this as, you know, very heavily influenced by each other. You know, Gold Mining Inc. also a very big resource, right? Wait, huh? Wait a minute. We might have stumbled on something better right here. We might have stumbled upon something even more interesting. Let me just see. Right, because we are talking about two different stocks right now, right? We're talking about gold mining, and we are talking about US gold mining, USGO. Right, so gold mining has a market cap of 280 million bucks, and US gold mining has a market cap of 112 bucks, right? So Gold Mining Inc. holds a 74% interest in US gold mining, right? So that's about, back of the math, back of the napkin calculation, about 80 million, right? So off of this market cap, which is in Canadian dollars, by the way, so let's just see. Let's just see, that's 280. So off of this $200 million US market cap, $80 million of that is the investment that they have in US gold mining, right? So you buy this company, gold mining, you buy it for about $120 million market cap. And then they also have about $26 million in cash. So you buy it for about 100 million bucks, right? And then you get US gold mining basically with it. All right, let's see. Let's see. Because they do say that they also have a pretty big resource in this stock, right? So this might be a very interesting company to look at. And they also hold some investments in Gold Royalty Corp. Very interesting. Very interesting. So gold mining, right? Gold Mining Inc. is kind of like a collaboration, right? Gold Royalty, US Gold Mining, Nef Gold, and then the cash position, right? And that all totals up to about 280 million Canadian, right? And their market cap is now 290 million Canadian. All right, sure. So does gold mining have their own projects too? What does gold mining own that the rest doesn't? All right, this looks to be very interesting. This is getting very interesting. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. I'll be right back because I do want to dive into this a little bit more. Because this got very interesting pretty quickly. I'll be right back, 5 minutes, and then we'll continue this part. Yo, yo, we're back. We are back. And we are going to open numbers because this is getting pretty interesting, right? So we're gonna get out the trusted Excel spreadsheet, right? And we are going to make a little calculation because it seems like this company has a lot of things going on. Hi, is it worth checking out AUMB if you haven't already? I haven't seen you speak much on Mongolia. Yeah, I don't know too much about Mongolia, to be fair. So, new country for me. I'll have to look into it to really get into it on the YouTube. But let's see, because this company has some pretty interesting investments going on. They have some long-term investments, right? In section 8, they have 26 million in cash, right? So we are first going to write down cash. They have 26 million. And we are just going to see what this company has and how they are valued right now by the market, right? So they have $26 million in cash. Then they have some exploration assets, right? That's their, what's it called? Their deposits. They have some short-term investments of 26 million on number 5, right? So we are going to look at number 5, and we are going to look at the long-term investments at number 8. Let's look at that first. Administration, professional fees, share-based compensations. All right, so a lot of burn in this company, that's fine. All right. Okay, number 5, first at number 5, short-term investments. As of February 28th, 2026, the company's short-term investments consisted of equity securities held by Neff Gold Corporation, Galleon Gold Corp, and Australian Mining Limited. Short-term investments in equity securities are recorded at a fair value based on quote market price, with unrealized gains or losses excluded from earnings and reported as a comprehensive income or loss. All right, so they own AUZ, they own 48,429,536 shares of that company. Galleon, they own 100,000 shares. And Neff Gold, they own 19,037,350 shares. Right. So I've written that down, right? They've got 26 million in cash, and then they've got these shares from these companies, right? So what are these shares worth today? Nev Gold. A share of Nev Gold right now is worth about $2.33. Then Galleon Gold Corp is worth about 0.98 cents. And AUZ, Australian Mines Limited, is worth a staggering 2 cents. All right, so that's a small investment. Then go back. So they own, they own 26 million in cash, right? That times that. Cell is a currency, is, let's make it Canadian dollars, right? Counting style, 1,000 separators. And we don't want the commas, right? It's D, 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 D. All right, so this is a currency as well. Canadian dollar, according to 1,000 separators. This is 26. All right, so they have $26 million in cash. They got an investment in AUZ for about 1.6 million. Then they got an investment in Galleon for 100 grand. And they got an investment in NavGold for NavGold, which is worth 44.4 million bucks right now. Right. So that for their short-term investments, number 5. Then they also had some long-term investments. Number 8. Long-term investments. As of February 28, 2026, the company's long-term investments consist of equity securities in Gold Royalty Corp. Long-term investments in equity securities are recorded as fair value based on quoted market prices, with unrealized gains and losses excluded from the earnings and reported as other comprehensive income and losses. All right, Gold Mining Inc. Let's see. So they have they have an investment of, as of February 28, of 21 million shares of Gold Royalty Corp. So they have also on this, right? Hold up. Why is it doing it like that? So they have Gold Royalty Corp. And they have 21,532,125 shares outstanding, and a share of Gold Royalty Corp right now is worth $2.87 US. So what is that in Canadian? Do they have a Canadian listing? Right. 2.87. That is about $4 Canadian. So $4 Canadian. That times that. So their investment in Gold Royalties right now, based on their 21.5 million shares, right, would be worth 86 million bucks right now. All right. But then I'm also trying to find their 74% interest in US gold mining, right? So where is that going? US gold, USGO. On April 24, 2023, the company's majority-owned Nevada-domiciled subsidiary, US Gold Inc., completed an initial public offering. US Gold Mining owns the Whistler project located in Alaska, USA, and its common shares and warrants are listed on the NASDAQ Capital Market under the symbol. All right, so why are these shares not on their balance sheet? Right, so they own 74% of gold mining, US gold mining, right? As you can see here, 74% owned by Gold Mining Inc. Let's see. Oh, here it is. As at February 28th, 2026. I don't know why I can talk. Gold mining held 9.8 million shares of US gold mining shares, approximately 74.2% of the outstanding common shares. All right. The company concluded that subsequent to US gold mining offering, it has control over US gold mining, and the result continues to consolidate the entity. US gold mining's earnings and losses are included in gold mining's consolidated statements of comprehensive income and loss, with net loss and comprehensive net loss attributed to US gold mining separately disclosed as being attributed to NCI. The NCI in US gold mining's net assets is reflected in the condensed consolidated interim statement of financial positions and the condensed consolidated financial statement. Okay, so they do still own these shares, right? So US gold mining, they own 9,878,261 shares. And if we go to USGO, we can see that the stock is worth $8.48. So just to make everything right in Canadian dollars right now, that is 11.97. Right, and if we put that in, as you can see right here, that's a total value of 118 million bucks. So if we then put all of this together, right, we get a company that is trading for about $276 million Canadian. And if we go to the Canadian dollars, 276, that's about 149 million for this company that it has in assets right now, right? And we buy this company, Gold Mining. I can't type. US Gold Mining Inc. The current market cap in Canadian dollars, right, is exactly that, actually. As you can see here, 276 million. And we just stated that their total investments, right, in all of these different companies and the cash that they have is 276 million. And that is also the current market cap, right? So there's no discount or a premium that you are giving to this company for the investments that they hold, right? So you're buying it for the correct market price in that statement. But gold mining itself has a bunch of resources as well, right? Can we go to these projects? Yeah. So gold mining says that they themselves, right, have a whole bunch of projects around the world, right? Around America and Alaska and stuff like that, right? So on top of the fact that you're buying a piece of all of these different investments, right? All of these different investments, you are basically getting the companies or the projects that gold mining has for free, right? Because you are buying this company, Gold Mining, for this market cap. But this market cap only represents the investments and the cash that they have. And they don't represent any of these projects, right? So this project in Colombia, my apologies. The Tribiribi project is a copper gold exploration project 51 kilometers from Medellin. And it has, they say that it has a measured and indicated resource of 7.88 million ounces of gold equivalent. Damn, that's a pretty big, that's a pretty big, it's a pretty big resource too that you're just getting for free, right? If you buy this company. That's pretty interesting. All right. Damn. Yeah, so that's what they're saying right here, right? They have 267 million Canadian dollars in equities and cash, as we just looked at right here. We come to the same numbers. And then their market cap is the same as that, right? But that doesn't mean that they are calculating in the portfolio of assets that they have, right? The other mines or the other projects that are inside of this stock too. I like that. I like that. I like that. But on the other hand, it is pretty difficult for the market to value a company like this because there are a lot of different parts to it. So the discount that you're getting right now might continue for a while. But, it is a pretty big discount. Gold mining's resource base provides multi-asset opportunities across America, right? So they have copper, they have gold, they have silver, copper, and antimony. I don't care about antimony, but they have gold. 10 million ounces of measured and indicated, 7.6 million ounces of inferred. They got some ounces of silver, but that's really minuscule compared to the copper and the gold. They have 1.2 million tons. Or million pounds, sorry. Of copper and some inferred copper as well, for a total gold equivalent ounce of 13 million measured and indicated and 9 million inferred. And right, and they probably count the ounces of copper and gold from US gold in that as well, right? That would make sense. And you can see here the same president and CEO, the same vice president of exploration, right? The same woman in the project development. So the new names here are Amrin, right? The founder and the co-chair. He's also the president and CEO of Uranium Energy Corp. And I think that that is a pretty big name in the uranium space. I'm not sure. But Robin, can you tell me that? If Uranium Energy is a pretty big company in the uranium space or not? David is the co-chair. He's a senior mining executive, currently the chairman and CEO of Gold Royalty, Gold Corp, right? Hut Bay Minerals, and the CFO of Agnico Eagle. Damn, that's a pretty big name. Tim Smith, we just looked at that. And then Paulo, right? He's a country manager in Brazil, and he is a geologist based in Brazil with 40 years of exploration experience in Brazil. So that's a very irrelevant position right there. Martin Dumont, he works for BMO Capital, so the capital extender has got a place on the board as well. Makes sense if it goes on a lot of money. And then Sam Moi, he is a mining engineer who has done a bunch of mines. SSR Mining, Great Panther Mining, Gold Corp, Placer Dome, AMEC. All right. Interesting, interesting. So gold mining's strategy is to acquire, advance, monetize, and retain upside across portfolio assets. So this is a strategic company, right? They acquire, advance, monetize, develop, and grow. So that's what they are trying to do. Past transactions show gold mining can reduce dilution and preserve upside at the same time. So this company has spun out a whole bunch of different companies beneath it, right? So Gold Royalty was a spin out. US Gold Mining was a spin out. Nutmeg was a option that they acquired. That's pretty good. I like that. That means that they are doing a lot in this industry, right? And with that spin out, they retained a 9.3% ownership in Gold Royalty and a 74% ownership in US Gold Mining, as we've just seen. Right, and this is talking about the US Gold Mining. This is talking about Gold Royalties. It's a royalty company. Right, so this is talking about their current resources that they have, right, that haven't spun out yet. Right, which is about 2 mines, or well, 2 deposits, right? One beneath a lake with about, let's call it 750,000 ounces of gold, 200 million capex. Smaller mining operation, and then one somewhat bigger mining operation of about 150,000 ounces of gold a year for 11 years. And then a total of about 2.5 million ounces of gold. But these 2 projects are included in the company, which you are kind of buying for the same price as their combined investments, right? So these projects are really icing on the cake, and you kind of get this in some sense for free if you buy the company, because you pay for the other investments that they currently also have, right? And then this is another gold project, another resource that they have of about 3 million ounces of gold. It's pretty good. Another resource that they have at higher grades, 1.7 million ounces of gold. Damn. So if they've got a lot of gold, they've got a lot of ounces, and they are doing a whole bunch of stuff with these companies. They are exploring, and at the same time, they are advancing towards a economic assessment. They are moving towards development. They are looking at gold and antimony differentials. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Huh. Sprott is invested. Rick Rule is invested. BMO Asset Management is invested. I like this. All right. So my 2 cents of this is that if I would get invested in US gold mining, I would rather be invested in their parent company, Gold Mining, right? Because the investments that they hold of 270 million bucks are almost the same as their current market cap. So that means that you're buying this company, and then you get all of the investments that this company holds. And then on top of that, you get assets for free, right? You get optionality assets. You get different mining assets that you're basically getting for free because the investments that they hold represent the market cap. That's there's value in this, I believe. Right? And then seeing that you know, Eric Sprott is invested, Rick Rule is invested, Goldman Sachs is invested, BMO Asset Management is invested, management and directors own stock in the company. That is pretty good. This is an overview of all of the ounces of gold and silver that they have, right? So you can count all of these up and see how much they're worth. And then you'll find that There's an extremely big discount between the share price and the current assets that they hold. But because this is such an unclear overview, right? They've got different assets, they've got different investments, they've got different potential mining properties. It's very difficult for the market at this point to value such a company. So it doesn't look at that. And it tries to value it in a way that it kind of understands how to do it. But you know, that's very difficult for these algorithms to get all of this information in there. So, you know, don't expect that value gap to decrease anytime soon. But, you know, there's a lot of value in this stock for sure. I like this. So we were looking at their balance sheet. That's the last thing that I want to look at because I saw a couple things that were pretty interesting, right? 26 million bucks in cash. They got about 10 million bucks in liabilities, right? So they can pay off all their liabilities and be left with cash. That means that the company's solvent. That is good, right? Very reasonable consultancy fees. Exploration expenses, let's look at that a little bit, number 6. G&A is pretty high, 2.1 million in 3 months, right? That is quite understandable, seeing that there's like 10 different projects that this company manages. You got a whole bunch of share-based compensation, right? 9 and 10. Let's look at that. 9 and 10. So big share-based compensation, big general and administration expenses, but also a lot of value in the company itself. So it's always a dance between those two things. So we can see as of February 28th, 2026, they had 213 million shares outstanding. And the year prior, in February 28, 2025, they had about 195 million shares outstanding. So they only diluted their shareholders for about 7%. So low dilution rate. That's pretty good. You have a lot of value in the company. You have low dilution rate. You got a good management team, and other big investors are in this stock. It's got a lot of ounces. It's got a lot of potential, and it's got investments, right? This is kind of an all-encompassing gold stock. I really like what I'm seeing here, I have to say. So they operated at a loss, right? 6.4 million. Proceeds from at the market offerings, right? So they sold some shares, and then their cash increased because of that. All right, so they sold shares to pay for their G&A expenses and their, you know, compensations, their share-based compensations. So let's look at that. Number 6. Exploration and evaluation assets. Let's see. Do they say what they are? No, they don't say what they actually spend the money on, just on which of the projects, unfortunately. So we can't check if they actually drilled with that money or if it's just compensation as well. Let's see, they got some options outstanding of about 15.4 million, so about 10% of the share count is available in options. That's not all that bad. And this is about the investment. All right. Looks pretty good. They just spend a lot of money on G&A. They spend a lot of money on share-based compensation. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. That's the market that we are in. But they have a very low dilution rate, and there's a lot of value in this actual company. Sounds pretty good. Gold mining. It has come down, right? 50% since the recent highs. Let's say about 60% even. Might be one to put on the watch list and even sell another company for, because this is extremely cheap as far as I can see it. Simba, just bought you a coffee. Thanks, man. I saw it come in. Thanks. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Gold mining. Oh, man. Very interesting. Very interesting stock right here. Let me see what they have in the recent news. Right, so it's a story, right? Where you have a company that owns investments that are as valuable as the market cap of the company. And on top of that, the company owns a whole bunch of assets across America, which a whole bunch of ounces of gold in the ground. The company has a history of spinning out pretty successful companies. And the company is being run by a very experienced management team that has created a lot of success in the past. Only downside that I can see right now, they spend a lot on G&A, they spend a lot on share-based compensation, and it's pretty difficult to value this kind of company for the market. So there's a big discount between the actual value of the company and the share price, and that discount might continue because it's just very difficult to value all of these individual pieces, right? So in recent news, they announced a updated PEA of one of their projects, right? After tax, right? So they done 2 very positive PEAs. So they're advancing their projects. No timelines highlighted with the projects. Yeah, so that's, of course, going to be difficult, right? When you have 10 projects that you're all working on at the same time. But who knows? With a company like this, if they find something really nice and they have a PEA, they might as well just spin it out, right? Get a different set of managers in there and then let them just run the company for the foreseeable future and let them make the plans, right? I feel like this company is like a deposit generator, you know? They get a deposit, they spin it out, they make a business out of it, and they do that over and over again. It's kind of what I'm getting. So you can see in this overview here, they have 1 project, they have 2 projects, right, that they are currently working on. Right, and it sounds pretty good. If you are interested in US gold mining, definitely check out their parent company, Just Gold Mining. Gold Mining Inc. It's very interesting. It's always interesting when you see Rick Rule investing in a company, right? Oh yeah, here it is. They have a interview together at the Rule Symposium. I don't know if I can listen to this with you guys right now, but, you know, would be fun. So is this company in my spreadsheet? Is it in here? Gold mining. Yes. Is gold mining in the GDXJ or the GDX or something like that? Because then I have the valuation of it. Let me just see. I'm just scrolling through it right now. Gold mining. Yeah, there it is. So, as you can see, right here, zoom in. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more, right? Gold mining It has a whole bunch of gold equivalent ounces on the balance sheet, but I think I made a mistake there. Let me just see. Projects, resource statement. Gold equivalent ounces, measured and indicated. 13 plus 9 plus their interest in US gold mining, right? That's another, 75% of 10, so that's another 7.5. So we're talking about, roughly 32 million of ounces of gold equivalent, right? Spread out over a whole bunch of projects, spread out over a whole bunch of companies. So it's not a clear-cut case. But for this about $200 million market cap right now, you are getting other investments in companies together with a very big resource package. And they are currently worth, right? They are currently trading on the open market for about $6 for every ounce of gold that they hold in the ground. And that is 0.15%. So why is this so much cheaper than the rest of this list? I believe that is because the market has a very difficult time understanding these kind of companies, right? They have a very difficult time evaluating 7 different projects, and then on top of that, 4 different investments in other companies, right? So that's, for the market, that's very risky, right? If you have a algorithm that trades these kind of companies, it doesn't like that because it isn't a clear-cut case. So that might actually be why this is so low, right? You see a whole bunch of people invested in here who know a lot more about mining than I do. Gold mining extremely cheap, but big discount because it's complex to value, so the discount is probably going to persist for the future. But worth looking at, definitely. Going to put this on my watch list, and I might, depending if I'm in the mood or not, I might sell a single deposit producer or a single deposit developer for this company, right? Because this has a lot of potential. There's a lot going on with this stock. So it's not every day that I see a whole bunch of companies in a row that I think are very interesting, right? We looked at Belarus the other week. I thought that was really interesting. I got a position in there. And now gold mining might be the next. Because I understand the story of US gold mining, right? Looks like a pretty decent company. Good management team, work together a whole bunch, right? Got a resource pretty big, billion pounds of copper, 3 to 4 million ounces of gold, but you can get the same project together with a whole bunch of other projects in Gold Mining Inc. Right? So it's actually way cheaper to buy this. I like it. Thanks for the tip. I like it. So who knows, man? This market is getting pretty difficult again for me personally, I have to tell you. Because if everything is going up, right, it's simple. You just sit back, you don't do anything. But if everything has gone down 60%, then there are obviously questions that you have to answer, right? Is gold mining cheaper than some of the other stocks that I own, right? And by how much? And does that mean I should sell some of my long-term cases that I really believe in to buy something that is, considered by the market a bit riskier because it's got a whole, scala on projects instead of just one, right? Let me see if I can quickly see. If they have a statement about how much money Rick Rule put into this stock. Because Rick Rule is talking about this apparently. And that is always a tricky question, right? When somebody with a big name talks about a stock, right, is usually when they want to put it into your attention. And, you know, who knows? He might be selling, he might be buying, he might be exercising warrants or options. You don't know what's going on with that, but always be careful when people are talking about stocks, including my channel, you know. Consider me biased when I talk about something, consider me unbiased when I don't own it, you know. Investing has risk to it, and understand that, you know, everybody is out there. Z Master, have you looked at Forgant PLC? No, I haven't. I haven't yet. Sounds like a British company, PLC. Right, I am starting to like Gold Mining Inc. It's a very complex case, but maybe very interesting. You know, seems very cheap. JJ May, hard to remain positive on miners after getting smacked in the face the new year. Yeah. But I'll show you something, man. Let me show you something. You're, you know, you've had this move, right, since 2019, right? Stock went from, let's say, sub $1 all the way to 28 bucks, right? So that's a 28,000% return. And then you're saying it's hard to remain positive on these miners. I mean, I don't know what you're expecting to gain more than 28,000%. 2,800% in, what is that? You know, 6 years, right? You're up 28x in 6 years. I mean, you know, things go up and down, of course. Over the long run, you know, a lot of these mining stocks are up, you know, and that's the power of being patient in this market, right? It goes up, then you spend a whole long time going down, and then suddenly you go up again, and then the first thing that happens is you go down, right? And then you go up again. But where people usually get it wrong is that people ignore this market when it's down here, and they get really excited when it's up there. And then they buy into this upward move, and then they have to spend a whole long time consolidating, you know? And then it looks like, right, if you bought at the top in 2021, then you had to wait all the way until 2024 before you saw new highs, right? So of course you are going to be very pissed off if you've bought this stock at 1180 and it's now down like 60% or 50 or 40%, right? You've been in this stock for so long, it hasn't done anything, but at the end of the day, right, understand that there's always going to be bull markets, there's always going to be corrections, and after a stock crashes down 56%, if we're still in a bull market, right, the next thing that's going to happen is that it's going up. So we've had the correction now, right? The correction is, in my view, right, the connection could be over, right? Who knows? Nobody can see in the future, but, you know, all of these stocks have gone down 60% already. That means that they're closer to a bottom than a top, right? Of course, a year feels like a very long time, but a year or a half year in this market is really just, you know, it's nothing, right? And then people ignore the stock when it's going sideways and they think, oh, it's not going anywhere. I see all of these other stocks just flying off to the moon. I see Nvidia, I see Tesla, I see Bitcoin, I see everything. I'm going to sell because this market obviously isn't working, right? And then they miss this move. And then they get back in. They think, whoa, the gold and silver market is moving again. Let me get back in. And then the first thing that happens is that you go down another 60%. And then you think, "Fuck, I did it again, man. This market is shit. It's not going anywhere. I have to wait another, you know, another correction. I have to wait another year before it goes up again, right? And then it goes up. And then it goes up again, right? And then the first thing that happens, after it gone up, it goes down by 40% again. And then you have to wait another year, right? But if you look at this market, right, week to week, month to month, year to year, of course, things are going to look extremely slow and like nothing is moving and like you're losing money. But if you just zoom out, right, you can definitely see that a company like Aya Gold and Silver has done extremely well since 2019, right? And in some way, some people even still think, you know, that the company is still cheap. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I know it's a very big silver producer. People are very excited about that. But, you know, value and price don't correlate at all in this market, right? The company could be more valuable right now than it was like a year ago, right? And be the same price or be lower or be higher. But, you know, it's all about patience. It's all about patience and buying the right stock and understanding that it's just going to take a while for these things to move, you know? Another stock that you are in, Visla. Visla Silver, right? Same story. Visla Silver, same story, right? The stock spent from 2021 all the way until, let's say, 2025 just consolidating in this area, right? And then it shot up. And of course, the people who have bought stock in this area, once it shoots up, a lot of people are thinking, finally, these damn stocks have moved for the first time in like 5 years. I've been underwater for 5 years, and I'm finally making some money right now. Fuck this market, I'm out right now. Get me out of this shit, it hasn't worked. I see everything flying, everything's going up, but these dumb silver and gold stocks, they haven't done anything. That's the market sentiment when you come out of this area, right? Then it goes up. And then all the people who haven't been in this market yet, right? They see this moving up. They think, oh shit, nothing is working, but just these gold and silver stocks, they're moving. So they're buying right there. Just at the moment when all of these people that have been grinding this sector for the last 5 years think, finally, get me out, right? So the price moves up and then it slams down. So if you buy in this top right here, so you've bought about a year ago, right? Half a year ago, you're going to be down 50 to 60%. Of course, that is just the first thing that happens in this market. Welcome. You graduated. You graduated mining education. You know, you've lost 50% of your money. Welcome to the club. You know, that's initiation rituals, you know? That's just what happens, right? Because that's the same thing as if you've bought in 2021, right? In 2021, you've lost 60%, right? And then you've had to hold the stock for a whole 3 years before you've made even close to your money back, right? But afterwards, you suddenly made 170%, right? You see how that works? And then, you know, the first thing that happens is you lose 50%, right? It's going to be difficult to hold on to this bull market, man. It honestly will be. Because it's going to be a lot of swings up and a lot of swings down. And these projects that you hold are going to do a whole bunch of different things. Some things are going to be very dumb. Some things are going to be very smart. Some things are going to be very ill-timed in this market. But, you know, the only thing that you can do is try to find good companies with good management teams that you believe are going to create value for you in the future. Not price. Price is something different. Price moves with sentiment. Value is created by the management team, right? So in this entire period, right, from 2020 till 2026, the Visla management team has been working on this project, right? It has created value. And that is what eventually will move the price. But the trigger on what moves it exactly day to day, month to month, year to year, is sentiment. It's just people feeling good or bad about a story. And that is something completely different from the value. So the only thing that you can do as an investor, and the reason, that this entire channel exists, honestly, is to explain that, there's a difference. And a lot of these mines have become a lot more valuable in the last couple of years. Both by management teams' execution, but also by the gold price. But that doesn't always get represented in the price, because the price has to do just with sentiment, and that can drop 50% in a month. But then, your point, your edge as a retail investor is then to think, all right, I still like the project. It's now 50% cheaper. Let's see. What are we going to do? Are we going to add some? Are we going to sell? That's up to you, of course. But I know that Vista Silver, right, is 50% cheaper now than it was at the top. So it should be twice as good as a deal if the value of the company didn't change between then and now, of course. The market is wrong a lot of the times, right? And it's your duty as an investor to take advantage of that and to not let that money be stuck on the table, right? So, there's always something with every single stock, right? There's always a story that's going on in every single stock, why it's going down or it's going up. But, I can overlay... Right, I can overlay Free Gold Ventures, I can overlay BlackRock Silver. Right, I can overlay Abra Silver. I can overlay Newmont probably as well. Right? These are 4 or 5 different companies, right? All in different stages of exploration, of development, of whatever. And you can see that all of them, roughly speaking, have the same chart pattern, right? Where the price goes up. But my session just disconnected. Hey, yo. All right. Midpoint. But, they go up, then they go down, they consolidate, and then they go up again, right? This price movement has way less to do with the individual actions the company takes and has way more to do with the sentiment in the general market. So, just understand that the value of a company might change, right? I don't know if BlackRock Silver has gotten more or less valuable than Vista Silver, but they have the same general price movements where they go up, they go down, they consolidate, they go up again, right? And then if the management team creates value in the long term, right, the stock should just have a higher base of which it continues to go up. But, as you can see, just the movements in these stocks are kind of alike. Even though they're different companies, they have different problems, they're in different regions, they're in different stages of development or execution, right? But they all kind of move alike. Why is that? Because the price of something has much more to do than the value, right? But if you get a company that is valuable and is growing in value over time, then the stock should just continue to move higher and higher with the same moves, right, in the industry. Because a rising tide lifts all boats, but I do believe that some boats will be, a lot higher than other ones once it's all said and done, And I'm not in this market to write this speculative trade, I'm in this market to build a portfolio of good and solid companies that can go through bull markets and bear markets so that, over time, I can exploit management teams' decisions to create value for my portfolio, right? I don't care about the price movements that happened, day by day, month by month. Simba, listen to Daily Gold. He's a technical analyst and he's quite good. I strongly recommend him. All right, I'll look into it. Who knows? If he's cool, I'll invite him on the channel. We'll have a little discussion, have a little interview. Let him know in the comments that I want to do an interview with him if he's cool, you know? I'm trying to get more involved with these people in the industry. It will be a lot of fun. So yeah, a lot of these stocks move alike, you know, and it really, at the end of the day, it's just the sentiment in this market which dictates whether these stocks move up or down. Unfortunately, it has very little to do with the actual, you know, day-to-day valuation or the, you know, day-to-day value of a mine. It's much more to do with sentiment. And we can track the sentiment in this market by looking at the gold to silver ratio. Look at that, huh? Didn't I make a excellent bridge into the next subject? Trying to get a hang of this, you know, of this stuff. But as we see the gold and silver ratio, right, it looking pretty ugly for us right now, honestly, right? We've had this gold silver ratio come down from 100, right, very historic number, all the way down to 50 to 45. JJ Ma, I have learned that rate talk and USD purchases pushes these mining stocks, you know, more than their day-to-day business. Yeah, for sure, 100%. 100%. You know, in a bear market, or well, you know, 2016, right? We'll come back to this chart in a little bit. I'm just gonna go into this tangent a little bit. Right, I've been in this market since about the COVID crash, a little bit after that, right? And that was a period in the gold market at that time where we've had this price action happening, right? We've went down in the price of gold in 2022 till about November. We went down about 20% in the price of gold over a, you know, 7-month period. And this was the steepest decline in gold in like 20 years or something like that. And I remember that if a mining company would publish good news during this time, right, during this entire period, actually, if a mining company would publish good news within this period, the stock would go down, right? So they come out with good drill results, and as a result of that, the stock goes down. Why is that? Because in a bear market, when there's not a lot of interest in these stocks, people understand that good drill results require more drilling for these companies to do in the future. And more drilling means more private placements, and that means more money that they need to raise. And if you want to raise money, the company wants to do that at the highest price, but the lenders or the people who you know, buy these stocks, they want to do it at the cheapest price possible. So they sell the stock on good news because they know that a future raise is coming. But now, if there's good news, the stock pops, as we've seen in First Mining, right? That is a key difference in this market. Right? Good news on the 16th of June, and the stock popped 27%. So that is a key differential in this market at the moment, right? It used to be that the stock got sold, now it gets bought. Same market, same kind of news, two completely different outcomes. So the sentiment in this market moves it a lot more than the day-to-day operations, right? Because the same publication of the same news from First Mining, if they did that 3 years ago, the stock might have dropped on that news, but because they do it right now, the stock pops 27%. It really depends, right? And the gold price is traded by algorithms that responds to interest rates, that responds to USD. It's got nothing to do with the actual operations of these mines themselves. So this gold and silver ratio, right? We've come down from 105 all the way to about 45. And then we've been into this consolidation just as long as the gold price has been consolidating, right? And the gold and silver ratio really is a gauge into the speculative mindset of the investor, in my mind. Because if we see the gold and silver ratio moving down, that means that people are buying silver. And people are buying silver for the speculative aspect of it. They buy gold for the protection, they buy silver for the speculation. And we have seen this ratio generally moving upwards, right, from 45 to about 60 right now. So that means that there is less speculation in this market. That means that people are buying more gold than silver. That means that people are afraid. That's fine, let them buy gold. You know, gold is very expensive. But we've been in this triangle, and we've broken out to the upside, and now we've retested that same upside. So that might mean that this is going upwards towards just about 80 or something like that. You know, you can kind of calculate it by doing some of this, putting that on there, and then it would go to like 80 or something. But that would mean that there is a bigger correction coming. And last week kind of, you know, was a week into that same direction, into the same direction of a correction, a further correction. Because if we look at the price of gold itself, right, we can see that it dropped down even further, right? It is now down 23% from the highs, so almost as much as the great financial crisis, which was about 33%. Which would mean that gold would go down to about this, right? And at that point, you know, it might as well just retest the support zone right there. Last week was a week that pointed into this direction, where gold could have another big drawdown. For mining stocks in particular, that would mean that from here, mining stocks could also go to their most recent correction, which is 35% below where we are right now. So last week was another week that pointed towards another 35% correction in the mining stocks. So if you are in this market right now and you are experiencing the volatility over the past year, kind of mentally prepare for some more volatility, either up or down, because it's not very clear where the gold price is going to go at all, right? And this market contains significant risk, right? Because besides all of the, you know, all of the speculation and all of the things that have to do with sentiment and price movements in this market, these mines or these exploration companies or these development projects, if they can't raise money, they go bankrupt, right? And then you lose everything. Right? So there is significant risk. And you need to understand that if you are in this market. And you need to be very diligent in what you invest in. But I want to look at the GDX to GDXJ ratio, another way to gauge speculation, right? Let me explain to you guys what I mean with that. So we look at the gold to silver ratio to understand. Before we get into that, it's one ratio we need to talk about first. The gold to SPX ratio. All right. Let me draw this box. So this ratio is gold to the general equity markets. Biggest ratio I look at, most 100,000 foot view. How valuable is gold compared to general equities? We see that in big tops, right, in big peaks in the gold and silver bull markets, we get a ratio of about 1.5, and in the future we've gotten a ratio of 6.5. Right? So a bigger ratio than it is now. Right now, it is 0.5, nowhere near a historical top. So that tells me that gold, compared to the general equities, is still cheap, right? We've been in this box for a while, where we've reached this, we've hit this plateau level a couple times, 3 times in the past. We broke through, but unfortunately, we have been slammed back down into this box, which means that there was a breakout, but as of right now, we are back in the box. There is no more people going into gold. People are flocking towards the general equity markets. But gold is still at 4,000. Key point. Ratio below that. Gold to silver ratio. Ratio that explains to me the people that are in gold. Why are they in gold? Right? A lot of people are in general equity markets right now. A couple people are in gold. People are in gold for safety reasons. They are not in silver yet. Silver is for speculation. Gold is for safety. People are looking for safety. But from the people who are investing in the gold market and the people who are investing in the mining stocks, and you have to understand that this, at this moment in this cycle, is an extremely small majority, a minority of people, right? Not a lot of people investing gold in general. As we've just seen, the SPI to gold ratio near historic lows. People are not investing in gold. Gold to silver ratio at historic highs, looking to break upwards. So people are not in silver, which means that people are speculating less. And of the people who are speculating in this market, so it's a subset of a subset of a subset, we can look at the GDXJ to GDX ratio, which means the smaller gold mining stocks versus the bigger gold mining stocks. And we can see that we have still off the bottom and we're still moving up. So the people who are in this market are getting more risky with their money. But there is still just not a lot of people in this market. They will come eventually. Eventually they will come. I believe that, at least. That's why I'm in here. But eventually this ratio will go up, which will push this ratio down, which will eventually push this ratio up. And that is going to be very good for all of these stocks, all of these ETFs. Let's see. So GDXJ or GDX chart looking horrible, looking absolutely horrendous, right? We've had an uptrend, 250%. We went down 35%. We've had a sloping ascending line or whatever, you know, technical analysis, mumbo jumbo. We broke through that. Then we backtested it, and now we're breaking down again. Ladies and gentlemen, this looks horrible. This looks like it wants to go down 15, 35, 40 something percent. If you're scared of that, please, 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 please take your own safety into consideration. Take your own mental health into consideration. There is considerable risk from here that we might go lower. Who knows? I'm still in it. I like the companies that I own. I just found another one that looks pretty good. Gold mining. Down 60% from the recent top. If it drops another 40% right from here, alongside with all of these, what the GDX and stuff is signaling, it would drop to about 70 cents, right? All-time low. Who knows? If it goes upwards afterwards, you know, that's a big pop. But who knows what will happen. But yeah, bull market looks like it's still on hold. Looks like people are still invested in the NASDAQ and things like that, you know. The NASDAQ, the S&P, in NVIDIA, in Amazon, in SpaceX, everything like that. AJ Walls, the price of miners affected by the spot price, which is influenced by the fluctuations in the futures market. The January spike and crash was due to leverage speculation and a margin call after. Everything is connected in this market, right? So it's really difficult to understand what moves what. The only thing that you can really understand is the companies that you invest in, the management teams, the decisions that they make, and the ounces of resource that they have. And you need to make some sort of a judgment on how valuable the company is, right? And then the fluctuations in the price of gold and silver, well, they will happen anyway, right? But the only thing that you can do, that you can really do, if you want to build some future wealth, is buy cheap companies, right? And sell them when they become expensive. But as of right now, we are very far away from them being expensive because there's just so many companies right now that we look at in this stream that are just dirt cheap. You know, we found another one today. So yeah, what to do then, huh? All right, guys, I got some other obligations to go to today, so I gotta close out stream in a little bit. But yeah, definitely another interesting day. We found another very cheap stock, huh? I'm gonna do some research. I'm gonna be looking at what I can sell to get into that because I don't have any cash right now. I'm invested close to 100% as I can comfortably get. So if you want to know where I invest my money personally, right? Not investment advice, no tips. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. If you want to know what I do with my money, right? You can go to buymeacoffee/silver lining analysis. I will, right? You can go to this page right here, right? Silver lining analysis, buy me a coffee. If you become a supporter there, you get access to my portfolio. I will update it once anything changes. If I sell something to buy Gold Mining Inc., you will be the first to know because I'll just post it on there. Yeah, that's just my way of explaining to you guys what I'm doing with my own money, right? Maybe that will be interesting. I invest in a lot of development plays right now because I think that those are the cheapest at the moment, right? That might change in the future and then I'll shift my approach a little bit. But as of right now, development stories, very, very cheap. Simba, Daily Gold. I will check it out, man. I'll check it out. Let me... The Daily Gold. This guy?
Is de correctie op de
Oh, yeah. Making a little bit of promotion from him. My guy is wearing one silly ass suit, bro. What a goofy guy, huh? That's crazy. Man, this guy's skin color is even gold. How do you get there? How do you get that, huh? I want to know what he's doing. How do I get my skin color to look gold? That's crazy. I should make mine silver so that I'm silver lining analysis and then I'm like the silver guy, I'll wear a silver suit and then like the silver tie, I'll look silver, Hell yeah. You should see him when silver was 100 plus. All right, bro, let's get into it. Fuck it. Let's see. When was silver 100? Oh yeah, my guy. Hell yeah. I should do this. Honestly, I should do this. This is great marketing, no? It's crazy. Get the silver suit when the silver price is bumping. Get the gold suit when the gold price is bumping. Hell yeah. Looks like a cool guy. Looks like a goofy guy. Probably really fun. Hell yeah. Get him on the show. Get him on the podcast. Sure. We'll have an interview with this guy. He looks cool. I'll send him an email. Thanks for the tip. Man, when silver reaches $100 again, huh? I'm gonna go have to get crazy too. What should we do? What should we do for a subscriber special when gold and silver reach new all-time highs? Any ideas? All-time high of silver is right now 121, right? What do we do for a special when silver gets to 122 bucks? Let me know. What are we gonna do? Melt silver and gold and drink it. Hey yo. My guy wants me to commit a sin. Live on stream. Robin, I think you might have misunderstood an earlier point I made. I made on first mining gold. That I actually bought them a year ago, and I'm up on them. And I really hope they follow the first quantum mining. Yeah, first quantum is a hell of a stock. I talked to somebody who sold the project to first quantum mining a while back. You know, I'm dealing with some things right now. I'm setting some things up, and he might, you know, this guy who sold the project to them, might come on the show pretty soon to do an interview live on stream. Maybe even next week. We're trying to get some things sorted, so that's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to be part of that, definitely tune in for next week's stream. Probably on Sunday or probably on Saturday. Because usually I stream on Saturday. This was a exception. But yeah, man, I'm gonna close it off. Thank you guys so much. Let me know in the comments of this stream what you would like to see as a special for when gold and silver reach new all-time highs. I'll be thinking about that, and we'll go do something very fun. It's only an 88% move from here, right? Should be doable. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate everybody for being here. See you guys next week, same time on Saturday. Cheers. See you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Simba. Thank you, AJ Walsh. Thank you, JJ Ma, for being here today. Thank you, Z Master. Thank you for Roman. Thank you, Russell Lee, for coming by. Thank you, A. Costi. Everybody just showing up today. Thank you, thank you. See you guys next week. Have a good week. Have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy your day. It's crazy weather right now here in the Netherlands, so I'm going to enjoy that for a little bit. I'll see you guys in the next one. All right. Bye-bye.